Hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nigeli and I'm a medical herbalist. And in today's video, we're going to do something very different. And that is, we're going to review a book. Now, the purpose of doing this, and I'm going to be reviewing many other books going forward, is that part of healing, part of empowering ourselves to heal ourselves is to gain knowledge. And we can gain knowledge in a number of ways: life experience, through teachers, but also through books. And so I'm going to be reviewing books that have had a very positive impact that I feel will be very useful to you. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Te Awa Atua, Menstruation in the Pre-Colonial Maori World. And this is written by Ngahuia Murphy. Apologies for the pronunciation. Now, I'm going to read the blurb at the back of the book just to give you an understanding of what this book is about. And then I'm going to go into how I got this book, why I got this book, and the amazing lessons that I've learned. Now, Te Awa Atua is a groundbreaking study of menstruation in pre-colonial Maori society. Many ethnographic accounts of menstrual rights were distorted beyond recognition by the colonial lens of their authors, yet their misinterpretations continue to be accepted as authoritative. This book is a challenge to that authority. By examining stories about menstruation located in Maori cosmologies, tribal histories and oral literatures, ceremonies and rites, Ngahuia Murphy argues that menstruation was seen as a medium of whakapapa genealogy that connected Maori women to their pantheon of Atua deities. Ancient rites recorded in tribal songs and chants reveal that menstrual blood was used for psychic and spiritual protection. These examples unveil striking indigenous constructs of womanhood that radically challenge the notions of female inferiority and menstrual pollution. And I'll say from the very beginning that the book achieved exactly what it said it was going to achieve. And as a menstruating woman who's had a significant history in terms of menstrual issues, and of course it was a significant part of my life, this book also challenged me. It challenged the ideologies that I took as normal. It also challenged me to think very different about menstruation, and I'm going to go on to exactly why. So why did I get this book? First of all, I have to thank Hayley Tialisa. She was a lecturer presenter at the BIPOC Herbalism Conference, and her presentation was the first step in challenging the ideas that I held about menstruation and about my periods. Something that, not that I felt was dirty, but I didn't see it in a very positive way. And so when I heard that lecture, it made me want to investigate more about Maori traditions and culture, because for a culture to produce such a powerful woman to come and teach, and when you heard her talk, like she was talking and people in the audience were crying, and she was the first one to do that, it kind of makes you want to explore where she's come from. So I then decided to try and explore more about Maori culture. And at the same time, my manager at work was also, just came from New Zealand and had so much to say about Maori tradition. So when she heard about this amazing lecture, and then also how inspired I was by it, she recommended this book, and thankfully was able to get this book from New Zealand. So when this book came in, I was like, this is it, I'm going for it. So first of all, the things that I really loved about it is I'm a cultural researcher. So a lot of my work is also about exploring my culture, exploring my traditions, and using the information and the knowledge I learn to inform some of the modern day issues that we have. Think of different ideas and different ideologies about certain things. And what I found was there was a lot of commonalities, and she explained something that I struggled to explain in my research, and that was a lot of things that are peddled as tradition, this is our culture, are not actually our culture. They have very colonial, patriarchal underpinnings. And she beautifully breaks down the impact of this in her own very culture, that things that are considered traditional in Maori culture, she uses the traditional story, she uses the traditional history to explain why that doesn't make sense, and to explain the colonial, patriarchal origins of those very things that have become part of Maori culture. And so for the first time, I felt like there was somebody who understood the confusion I had when I'll be learning about certain aspects of Ga culture. And I'll be like, this doesn't make sense, because we see women, Atananyumo is the name of our God, and it means father, mother, God. And so for a female to be so high and yet disregarding in certain elements that we consider to be tradition, I thought there's something not quite right. It doesn't flow with the rest of our ideologies, and it's beautifully broken down in this book. The other thing that I really loved is that, she explains whenever she comes with a concept or an idea around menstruation, she does so by telling you Maori poems, Maori histories, Maori stories, statements from the elders. And you know, there's ways that elders speak that it's just not like, I don't even know how to describe it. When elders speak, there's a power behind their voices. So when you're reading these stories, there's a power behind those stories when she's explaining the concept that adds a vim and a power to the story. And there is a quote in there where she mentions that the women would do war dances and expose their genitalia, and it will literally change the game in the war. It will scare the enemies and also, you know, cause the warriors to have an extra vim to fight. And it reminded me how in a lot of African culture, the moment a woman strips naked in a demonstration, it's a next level thing. Like, everybody fixes up, everybody behaves. The moment a woman strips her clothes to demonstrate, it's like over there. And when you hear those stories, it's kind of a reminder that you come from a culture where women are really powerful, yet you don't see yourself in that way. And why is that? Now, when we say why is that, I'm going to read this quote from the book and then I'm going to go from there. So understand, there's an element which goes, I think Paula's insight, the old ones were empowered by their certain knowledge that the power to make life is the source and model for all ritual magic, and that no other power can gainsay it. Provides a clue to the political imperative behind framing menstrual blood and menstruation as pollutive in order to subordinate that power. We look at medical research, women are very hardly included. We look at the fact that we go to the hospital, things that are real to us, illnesses that are real to us are very much demonized and disregarded. We look at how society has been treating women. And reading this book made me understand that this has been very deliberate. That women have been historically very powerful, that women are very important to any society, and that in terms of colonization, the idea was to subdue, the idea was to colonize and make people feel less than they were. And they did that to women through making things that come naturally to them, like menstruation, seem like a negative and pollution, unclean. We don't want you anywhere near us during this time. And so this book kind of just breaks that all down and crushes it into pieces and makes it seem like a nonsense. So as a woman, I feel empowered that something so natural is actually a sense of power, a sense of something that I shouldn't be too scared about or concerned about. So this book, like, I just have to say, has been extremely empowering, and that's not all. Now, I have been menstruating for a long time. I've had my period for a long time, and you know, a lot of the times, especially when I was younger, the periods were very painful, and you know, I didn't look forward. There was very rarely a time that I actually looked forward to my period. And so I didn't realize that along with the messaging from the outside world, the ones with the colonial underpinnings that are still going around right now, there was something ingrained in me that saw what I was going through as slightly unclean, as something that I would dismiss as something that you don't talk about. And when you read this book and see how Maori culture were just so vocal. Now, I come from a very vocal culture, but seeing how the Maori community was so vocal about periods that it wasn't something that you just stayed away from or don't talk about. And then she would talk about certain traditions, and there was something in me that was like, ew. And it was like a subconscious thing that, oh, how could you touch blood? Oh, how could you do it? You used your hands to do it. People weren't scared, and you went into the same. So when you read this book, it really challenges some of the biases that you have around menstruation. And she does it in such a beautiful way. You don't feel like you're being told off. You feel like it's almost like an elevation in your thought, like a development in your thought. And so when I look at this book and when I see what the empowerment of this book had for me and how I now view menstruation and how my approach will be in terms of my own research, I definitely think that anybody who's into the empowerment of women in society, but also having an understanding of what colonization actually did, because just it literally permeated through every element of society and permeated through every single narrative that people held about themselves and ideas that people held about themselves. And I feel like this book will help you break that down into a way that you understand it, but also help empower you about the narratives you hold about yourself and your body. I love the fact that there's so many beautiful Maori stories, there's so many beautiful Maori traditions, and the way period menstrual blood was used in so many different ways. Even the fact that period pads back in the day, they were using moss as pads and cloths as I feel like sometimes you need another narrative. If you want to challenge something, a thought process in your head, sometimes it helps to have another narrative that's real to people. And just looking at how Maori is now and how they're standing up for themselves and how they are like they're fighting with vim and power, I think is an inspiration to all people and gives you an understanding of the importance of cultural narratives, because it is the cultural underpinnings, the ideologies that are empowering the Maori people now to fight colonization in all its forms. And I think one thing I've learned from this book is to destroy a society is to destroy the narratives around women. And this book, the purpose of this book is to reclaim that narrative. And I think everyone should have it. The good news is I will be stocking this book very soon. So if you are in the UK or if you're anywhere around the world and, you know, if you're in the US and you're okay with the postage, like if you're in the UK, you'll be able to get this book in the next few weeks. But this is a very powerful book. And I feel like it invites us to revisit all the narratives that we have. And some way, the best way to revisit is to go back to our traditions and cultures as far back as you can, listen to those stories, look at the cultures that they birthed, and it will give you an understanding of yourself and who you are and how amazing and powerful you are. So if there's any other books that you would like me to review, please name them below and I will have a look, because I just definitely have an addiction to books. I love them. I like them like I'm buying shoes. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave those questions below. Share the video and share the power of menstruation to everyone. All right, take care and I'll see you in the next video.